Hey folks, I'm Tom Vassell. Welcome back to the Dice Tower Live. We are at the Gathering of Friends in Niagara Falls, New York. Today is Saturday. It is the 16th of April, 2016. That's 4/16/16. That doesn't mean anything. 4/15/16. That was yesterday. You don't know that. All right. So anyway, this is Greg Shaw.
Too early. Good morning.
He is once the most famous board game reviewer in the world. That's true.
I don't know about that, but you know,
I keep track of these things. See, back when people used the archaic keyboard to type.
Oh, I'd show you my phone. It's over there if you'd like to see it.
So this is your what? How many times have you come?
You know, I was counting it up. I think this is 18. I've started coming in 1998. Missed 2 during that period for various reasons. So I think this is number 18.
Now Greg reviews a lot of games and has. We'll rank him a 6 out of 10 on his tastes. But
which is much higher than my wife ranks me on anything else. So that's pretty good, actually. So.
There's a lot of.
Well, yeah. Let's not go. Don't read anything into that. Do not read anything into that.
Okay. Well, anyhow,
Is the mic on?
my mic on?
Can you check it?
Yes, they're both on. Wait, mic number. Yeah, they're both on.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right.
Is it
Oh, I know
mono
the problem
mode?
is.
Mono
I know the
mode?
problem is they are both on. But we can put.
I broke it already, apparently. Yeah, must have, huh?
Tom broke it with that joke.
I didn't do a joke.
Sorry, I'm the one who did it, and afterward I said, wait a minute.
About the beeping, because it probably just beeped on everyone.
Well, I don't know if that beeps it or not, but anyway, yeah, that should fix the sound. Sorry about that. But anyhow, okay, so Greg does like Euro games a lot.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
your bread and butter, although you are not as big a fan, I found, of the super heavy Euros. You like, or the complex ones.
Right. Yeah, I guess taste changed, right? I mean, I grew up in the hobby playing war games, you know, where Avalon Hill games and SPI games, you'd have a 50-page manual with rule 3.225. Gradually moved over to the European-style games. Did like a lot of the heavy games, and occasionally I'll play them. But I guess some of the games that are popular, like Kanban or, maybe Madeira, to me just involve a little bit too much work and not as much fun.
Okay,
So,
see, now he's a 7
yeah.
out of 10. 'Cause I like
There
that.
we go.
But I agree. I mean, a lot of games to me do feel more like work than like fun.
Yeah.
Like, I find that the games that are most memorable for me, like we played a game last night that was just fun. That was just silly fun, but we had a good time, and I'll remember that experience.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so what have you seen this week that excites you?
Well, I had played quite a few of the Essen releases before it came here, so they weren't new to me, like Mobasa and, of course, Pandemic Legacy and Grand Austria Hotel, Porta Nigra. Those are all ones that I really enjoy. New this time, I really liked Quadropolis from Days of Wonder. I actually thought it was good, and some people were telling me that it was a little too abstract, but I found it really engaging. Enjoyed that one. But a couple of prototypes I enjoyed. Little one from, or not a little one, big box Cosmos, but very quick, Imhotep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've
which
not
was
played that yet.
Light, easy, fun. Just thought that would be a nice little filler, if you will. So yeah, those are probably the ones that have caught my attention the most so far. Steam Time, got to play that for the first time.
What'd you think?
I really liked it.
I do too.
Really enjoyed Steam Time. Yeah, it was very good. I was having a tough time with the rules. Reading the rules, getting it through it, and fully understanding how it flowed. And so fortunately, someone taught us the game, and that worked much better. It was a lot easier than the rules seemed to lead me on to believe.
I think what I enjoy about Steam Time is the upgrading of the actions. That's always something that I enjoy. By the way, folks, if you're watching, we're going to be taking live questions for the different folks. So you can just ask them straight in the YouTube channel, and we may or may not answer them. That depends on the questionnaire. Do we have any questions?
Or my ability to answer them.
Well, first of all, we have a comment or sort of a question that's asking, hey, Tom, did you get your sauce from Ronald McDonald? But
No, this is popcorn. There's no popcorn at McDonald's.
Right. He got them at AMC, actually.
Clearly, he is far more stylish than I with my plain black socks. So.
Yes, that's usually the word people use with me. Is
Stylish, absolutely.
The main question is about food experiences while you've been here.
Man, gosh.
Repeat that.
Oh, yes. The question is, what's good food experiences while here? All right. Well, last night, what was the name of the place we went to?
Griffin's Gastropub, thank you. And that was my second time there. They opened.
Yeah, I know it doesn't seem like it has a great name, but the food there was amazing, low
Yes.
prices, and someone said it was like the highest ranked restaurant in the
Yeah,
area.
yeah, it was like TripAdvisor, I believe. I had it right at the top of the rankings. It opened 2 years ago, apparently, because I missed last year. So this is my first experience, and I'm going twice already, and it is
It was
excellent.
really inexpensive for a
Excellent.
really large amount of food, which I'm sure was extremely unhealthy, but really delicious.
Yeah, yeah. I will not step on the scale for at least a week after I get home. So.
Yeah, I probably will, but that's okay. But no, that was probably the best meal I think I've had this week. I'm trying to think what else we did that was. Garrison House, yeah, we went to the Garrison House. It was someplace in
bad.
Canada, in the middle of nowhere, and I really enjoyed that place. It was just, what did I have there? Oh, shepherd's pie.
There's an Italian restaurant. I always mispronounce the name. Villeos. Some of you guys may have been there. It is about a 5 or 6 block walk. It's connected to it. Used to be a Super 8 motel. Sounds weird. Gee, they could have a good Italian restaurant and a Super 8 motel, but it was fantastic. Changed owners apparently, and people were telling me, oh, it's not as good, but it was still fantastic. So that's really good. I go there every time I come. That was really good. And we went to Wine on 3rd, which is kind of a wine bar / gastropub / restaurant, and really good food there too. So those were, so far I've been very happy. Past years, not so much. This year I've found a few new things.
All right, so we come back to games. You still write on games, I hear.
Yeah, occasionally.
How would people find us?
Opinionated Gamer site. You know, I do regular reviews and articles for that. Of course, Counter Magazine. You know, I've been.
Well, of course, what? Maybe you should tell people.
Oh, Counter Magazine. Been picked up from Mike Siggins' Sumo magazine, which ran in the 80s and 90s. Counter Magazine came around in 1995, if my memory serves me right, and it's a quarterly. Was in print publication for 15 years. I wrote for them since issue number 4. Became the editor in 2015, 3 years. Oh, maybe earlier than that. 3 years ago now. So, do the math. 2013. Yeah. Been editor of it for it. So I write in Counter Magazine editorials, do reviews and articles there, and that comes out once a quarter. And then of course, Board Game Geek, Herb Levy's Gamers Alliance report. I write reviews for that, and we were talking last night. I love to write, so that's why I do more of my stuff in print as opposed to video.
Very good on camera, though. I'm trying to get him to move to video.
Yeah, he's been trying hard. I don't have the handsome ruggedness of Tom Vassell or the hat
There's
collection.
been a lot of lies told this morning.
No, I mean, the hat collection,
I
I'm just
appreciate
envious.
them. I don't buy that. Everyone goes, oh, I like your hats. No, you don't. Because these hats are
No, your hat
buyable.
your hat
You can
yesterday
buy
was
these hats
awesome.
in places,
Yeah.
and no one does. So
Your hat
that's
yesterday
so I
was
know no one
awesome.
really wants them.
Just like I like your socks.
All right, Greg. Well, we're going to move on. Thanks for coming
Tom,
on the show.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it. Thanks for everything you do for the hobby. Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it.
Thank
All right,
you,
we're going to
man.
stick your mic.
Oh, yep.
All right,
I'll get
wow,
that
there's a
done.
lot of people here.
Yeah,
Who's in the
There we
biggest hurry?
go.
Who's in the biggest hurry?
Hopefully we see you at some point.
All right,
Tom.
we'll take that.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
There are people out there who are like, thank you. We're glad to see someone doesn't have these smartphones.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
All right. Well,
Good
Mr.
morning,
Scott
good
Nicholson,
morning.
thanks for coming on the show.
Are we live right now?
We are live.
Hi there,
that
everyone.
Whole thing has been live.
This is not Board Games with Scott. That ended 6 years ago, Kickstarter people. I know you're a big fan of my show. You say in your email, but it ended 6 years ago. So,
Speaking of that ending, you do something different. You did not fade, right? Like many people. And I've noticed that when you'll do something, and then you say, all right, I'm done. And you move to the next. You like doing that? You did the Board Games with Scott.
Right.
You did the education thing at Board Game Breakfast for a while.
Yep.
Now you're in escape rooms, and I see you do these things, and then you're like, I'm good. You like doing it, like having that definitive ending?
right. I don't like to pod fade away, and disappear. And also, I like to find out a good time to leave. I'm looking at the market and saying, okay, I left Board Games with Scott because there are a lot of other people that were doing videos, and I said, I'm not making a big difference here anymore. Where can I make a big difference? And so I say, okay, this is new, no one's doing this. I'll see if I can make a big difference here. And I'll try it out and see if I can make a difference. And I'd rather not just spit things out to spit it out. I want to try to make a difference with what I do.
Well, Scott is definitely an influence on the Dice Tower. I didn't even think about video until you did it. I believe the first time I saw you, you had done a TV spot.
Yep, yeah. I did both regional TV and then one piece on CBS with Mo Rocca, where he came to Syracuse and we talked through board games.
And then you did your own reviews, and you did really, I don't want to say stupid, weird intros.
Stupid is fine.
Well, no, I mean, but you did these weird intros, and I always found that great. You know, it was a good idea. So
That was a
that's
little piece
where
of
part of
my,
that comes from.
My brain plays vignettes constantly, and so I decided to enjoy inflicting those upon the world.
Some of those I find interesting because it looks like you did them in your backyard, and I always wonder what your neighbors thought.
They very much did. And one time we were doing one, and I believe I was wearing a kilt and talking about sheep. And I filmed for 7 or 8 minutes, and I look over, and my neighbor is standing right there on the other side of this stone fence. And so I have to go and explain what's going on and why she's seeing these things. And then I continue to have an audience. So when I would do things, then more of the family would come out and watch what's going on.
Okay. You should have put like live studio audience.
There you go. Well, I thought if someday, if I want to do the Kickstarter thing, I could do Board Games with Scott Under the Kilt, where I pull out all of the footage that people actually never saw and those intros that never actually made it to air, put that all together.
See, now you're going to have people asking for that. It's going to happen.
Funny that.
Escape rooms.
Yes.
What's the deal? How are you involved with them?
So in 2014, I went to my first escape room in Singapore and got really interested because I've done live action role playing. My first publication was actually Cthulhu Live, a live action role playing rule set. So I've been doing LARPing for decades, and I saw the first escape room and I said, hey, this is LARPing for the masses. I have things to say about this. And as a researcher, there's 4 ways to get known as an academic. You can do something first, which is what I look to do. You can do something last, you can do something the best, or you can do something the worst. Any of those, and people will talk about your stuff. So, kind of going
I did not know that.
That's right. First, last, best, or worst, and you can get known. So no one else in the games field was talking about escape rooms. I put out a worldwide survey. I surveyed 175 escape room companies from around the world, and put together about a 30-page white paper that's out there online, talking through what these rooms are, what are the puzzles, how are they run, and what's the difference in continents. Because they started in Asia, they then moved to Europe, and they just hit North America. The first one was in Toronto in 2013. By the end of 2014, there were about 50 in Toronto. Now there's 75 in Toronto. Toronto's
in one
the hub.
city?
Yeah, Toronto.
Wow.
The Toronto area is the hub of escape rooms in North America. But what I got involved with them was for learning purposes. So because I saw these as activities where you could bring people together and over a short period of time have them focus on some educational area. I made one escape room for Fort Stanwix, which is a military fort in the US, where players were playing British spies sneaking into the fort to figuring out how to sabotage the fort. But now I've gotten involved with something called Breakout.edu, which is a concept of using escape room concepts for classrooms. So at breakoutedu.com, it's an open source platform. Teachers can go on there, they can either buy it, and it's a box with a hasp and a series of locks. Teachers can get this box, or they just give you the list, because it's an open source platform. Buy this box, buy this directional lock, this lock, this lock. And then teachers can make games and put them at the Breakout EDU website. There's over 140 games there right now that teachers have made just in the last 6 months. So the idea is, as a teacher, you buy the box and the locks, you print out the puzzles and challenges. They're affiliated with a topic and a grade level. You bring it into your classroom and you play the game. And I've really gotten involved with that movement because I love that it's actually put on by an ex-teacher who's wanting to do something awesome for classrooms. It gets kids really engaged in topics. And what I did in January was the first Breakout EDU Game Jam, where we brought together teachers and game designers. And the teachers brought their topic areas, and the game designers helped them make escape rooms. And we actually did that on Twitch. So we had 20 sites around the world making Breakout EDU games that then went into classrooms that went on the Breakout EDU website. So I really like that model of a new type of activity in a classroom that's not staring at screens. It's face-to-face interaction, intense interaction around puzzles and challenges, and then you can get the kids to make games. Once they've seen the structure, you get them to say, we just studied that topic, now we're going to make the games.
Wow, okay, that's really interesting. And this, you're saying, works for like all sorts of, like, is there a subject matter that this works best with?
Really, the idea is that you've got locks that resolve with numerical or alphabetical answers. So anything you can come up with a challenge. So I would say it can apply to any topic. You could have something more physical for physical education where they're actually physically doing tasks to figure out combinations. You could do it in history, you could do it in math, but it's up to that educator to make that connection between the activities, because all the lock is a way of telling you if the answer's right. But there's something exciting about the physical nature of manipulating the lock to see if you're right that gets kids, and really anyone. I've actually been doing development myself now. My second research area is doing this for corporate training. So trying to come up with models using this for corporate training techniques, because there's a lot of corporate training use in escape rooms. Many escape rooms have figured out they make more money doing corporate training events than they do doing recreational time. So they shrink the recreational hours, open up more for corporate training. The problem is most of those folks are not using their escape room for anything other than like paintball. Like a paintball, that how you bring a team together, they play paintball. You bring a team together, you do an escape room. But there's no debriefing and there's no engagement of the actual things you're trying to teach. And that's my second research area, is how do you make an escape room game based around a concept like team building, using theories of team building and build the puzzles around that, rather than making a game that you happen to put people in to build a team. This is a game designed to make you build teams and designed from the ground up. And so that's my development right now, is how do you help escape rooms do better games for corporate training, involve the reflection and debriefing process that's needed, so they're not just an entertainment place, but they're actually an educational place.
We got any questions for
I
Scott?
have one question asking Scott if he's working on any new games.
Yes, I actually have one prototype here.
Real quick, the question was, are you working on any new games currently?
So I've got one prototype I've been showing to some publishers here at the Gathering. It started life as Going, Gone, the card game. And I showed it to SB, or the friend of the show, SB. And he said, well, you know, if you if you'd put this out before the board game, I might have been interested, but I think it's going to undermine sales of the board game. But you're welcome to show it to other publishers. So I've reworked it.
He's so generous.
Yes, it's currently called Chant. It's the Rowdy Dwarven mining game, where you are a team of dwarven miners, and you're playing. It's a pure card game. But when you're ready for the round to end, anyone can start chanting and banging on the table the dwarven mining chant, which they're reading from a card. And when the chant is over, the day is over. Time to go home.
Okay. That sounds like it's fun to watch.
It is fun to watch.
So, so have you had any bites on this yet?
I can't say.
Okay.
But
that's
we'll just say I
interesting.
don't think it's going to be going back home with me.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
that's always
All
a
right.
good thing.
So you've done, you mentioned Going, Gone. You've also done Tulip Mania.
Right?
Those are your two games,
Those
right?
are the two board games.
Board games.
And Cthulhu Live as the recreational game, but then a whole slew of corporate training and educational games that don't make it out to the general market. Sometimes those are done, I work as a consultant. So a corporation will hire me to make a game around a specific learning outcome, and that game will never get published. That game will just be for their use and for their training. I've actually gotten more engaged with making learning games because the market for a learning game can continue to grow because you're going to continue to have new learners. As compared to the recreational board games, where it is frustrating as a game designer. When you put Going, Gone was 4 years in development. You put 4 years into development, it has this flash for a couple weeks, and then no one cares about it anymore. And as a designer, that's frustrating. And I thought, well, again, I want to make a bigger difference. And so if that bigger difference is that I can help someone learn about something in the real world, and I'm running a degree program now at Wilfrid Laurier University, and that's our tagline, making games to change the world. You're going to continue to have new learners that need to know that topic. And so that's where my passion is now, is making games that can actually change the world, knowing that they can have a much longer life than a recreational game. And that's why you haven't seen too much from me in this market, because I'm really focused in making a difference out there.
No, that's really exciting. I'm really interested. When you go to escape room, do you find that you're thinking about the educational aspect rather than having fun?
Yeah, in fact, so in my role as a professor, one of the challenges is trying to find some escapism in games, because I'm spending all day now working with games, teaching people how to make games. So what I actually do is I focus on making analog games, physical games, and escape rooms, but I play video games. And so I allow myself to say, I'm not going to make video games because I want to have that as my entertainment. So I actually, on a regular basis, I get online with board game friends and we play Diablo or Borderlands or other video games. Still having that same engagement we'd have at the board game table, but I can be in that escapism mindset, just enjoying digital games.
I guess Borderlands would be a good escapism.
Yep.
Now, how many escape rooms have you been to?
I'm at about 70 now.
What's the best one? Feels like a generic question, oh, there's so many out there.
So here, I mean, first I can give you a generic answer that everyone hates, which is it depends upon the team you're with. In the United States is the only country in the world where you commonly are put into escape room with people you don't know. In other countries, that doesn't happen. And so much about an escape room is about the team you're with, about the experience you're having. a group of people you want to be locked into a room with an hour, you can have a badly designed escape room and still have a fantastic time. You can have a great designed escape room, but if you're in there with people that you don't like or you don't know, you can have a horrible time. Just like with board games. That's why I say board games are all about the match between the game and the players and the context where you're playing it. And escape rooms are the same way. It's about that match between the game and the players and the context. Is it a social thing? Do you want to think and do puzzles? That said, the most engaging activity I've done, there's a group of escape room reviewers in the Toronto area, and they call themselves Canadian Capers. And they've done 2 of these live theatrical escape games. So in the first one, it was a night at the Speakeasy where there were 20 teams of 6. It started like a puzzle hunt. So actually it started with your menus at a restaurant. And the menus had hints, and you had to order something from the waiter, and you got more challenges. But as the game went on, you had to leave the table. You had to role play with people. There was a story about the mafia, that the Speakeasy was being shut down. The feds were coming. You had to find the back entrance out. You had to prove that you were worth it. You had to bribe your way out. And so you changed from just doing puzzles to actually doing role playing. And the penultimate challenge in that game, which I thought was a fantastic moment, to win the game, you had to cheat at blackjack. So your team had to come up with a distraction, a card sleight, and you had to cheat. And that was the only way you were going to win enough money to bribe your way out. And I thought that was, as a design element, fantastic, because it forced you to put yourself into, you had to break the game, because it was like a blackjack game, and you go in as a gamer thinking, oh, I have to play the game. But then you have to think, no, I'm in this Speakeasy, and this is kind of a sleazy establishment. And so the only way to win was to cheat. And I thought that was, so for me, that was the single moment in all the escape rooms I've done that was sort of just awesome, to watch you have to come up with a way to cheat the house to be able to succeed and win the game.
Wow. So you have to cheat to win. This is a good lesson for board gaming.
There you go. Cheat to win. Well, there are some games that let you cheat to win.
There are.
You know?
Let's see, Cosmic Encounter, Dragon's Gold.
Illuminati in the original rules.
Definitely
very
Illuminati.
specific. Crunch, the economic game by the people who did, by Terrible Games, that did War on Terror, where you were running a bank that...
Oh, this was the one they did after War on
Right,
Terror.
right. So it was a card game, and the goal with that game was to, you were running a banking industry. You were all going to collapse. The goal was to get as much money personally as you could before your company collapsed. And in the rules, you were allowed to hide money cards on your person or wherever. At the end of the game, it was the money that's in the game you put in the bank account, plus the money you stole during the game. Another great cheating game is the Cheating Moth. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have not.
Oh, it's fantastic.
From the people that make that cockroach.
Cockroach poker.
Ah.
So, little game.
Kraken-laken.
Plays just like Uno, with one exception. There are certain types of cards you can't legally play, ever. But you have to get rid of all your cards to win the game. One player at the table is the guard. The guard's job is to watch to make sure everyone follows the rules. All the other players, the only way you get rid of those and the guard can play the cheating cards fairly. Everyone else has to somehow sneak out the cards when the guard's not looking. And what's fun, it's another one that's fun to watch, because as players play it in multiple rounds, they get more and more brazen with their cheating. They'll work together to do distractions. They'll throw a card over the guard's shoulder. And when you finish a round, you'll just see cards everywhere on the floor, under the table. One woman had a dog, and she was hiding them under her dog. So there's like 7 cards under the dog. So the Cheating Moth, it's a great social game. It's hilarious to watch people get braver and braver on how they cheat.
Okay, I'm getting this game.
It is
That
worth
sounds
it.
amazing. Well, I
Thank
think
you
that's all
very
the time we
much.
have for today, sir. Thanks so
Alrighty.
much for coming on. And if people want to hear more about your escape rooms and the work you've done, where should they go?
Best place to go is scottnicholson.com. You can find all my links to my social media, and all my writings are online. They're all free, so you can find all sorts of good stuff there.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to steal the mic back.
Nope.
All right. You guys want to do rock, paper, scissors?
Oops, we
or-
don't need your name badge. We just need
Who's
the
in a
mic.
bigger hurry?
All right. Now time to go sell overpriced games at the flea market. Yay.
It don't matter to me.
All right.
I'm going to do one more. I'll do Jeff.
Jeff, come in.
And then,
Next.
and then you're next no matter what. Well, you might say that. We'll see.
Unless somebody more exciting comes in the door.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that. All right, Jeff Engelstein, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Now, you are here. This is the first. You've been
Second.
here before. Second time.
Yeah, I was here 2 years ago.
Okay. And so you're getting to play a lot of games. You're still working on designing games.
Yes.
Right? So what
Yeah.
can you tell us about upcoming designs?
Well, I've actually been, I've got 4 games I've been playtesting here that I brought with me. So the big one that's closest to coming out is The Dragon and Flagon with Stronghold, which is our game about fighting in a tavern and throwing mugs and swinging from the rafters and flipping tables and stuff like that. So that should be out at for Gen Con, at least a couple of 100 copies, maybe at Gen Con. So I'm
And this is
excited about
really
that.
a strongly thematic game,
Oh,
right?
yes.
This is, a lot of times you have these things. This, you really are throwing a mug at someone else, pulling the rug. Is it still pulling the rugs?
Yes.
All right, good. I'm
Absolutely.
glad for
I wouldn't get rid of that. Yeah, I mean, we started designing it based around this old game from Yakinto from the 80s called Swashbuckler, which I know you're familiar with. So.
Right, you showed this to me at Gen Con like 5 years ago. It actually comes in an LP record
Right. Yes.
case.
Yeah, and it says on big letters in the front, "This is not an LP." Back when people knew what that was.
Today's like,
So
this
we
is a
really
cool new
wanted, the
cover.
thing we really wanted to preserve was the dollhouse factor. I mean, it's a little, the board is the map of the tavern, and it's got actual little 3D tables, and you stand on top of the tables, and it's got mugs and barrels, and it's not just flat pieces. Everything looks really cool. So we're excited about that one coming out.
Now this is not. Are you jointly designing this one?
That's with my kids. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that was all of us.
Well, this is interesting because you have the kids working with you, and it's not something that almost anyone else is doing, I think.
Yeah, and they were really working with me. I mean, this is not just like, I'm putting their names on the box. There's been a lot of discussions, a lot of contentious
Who is the
back and
most
forths and stuff like
strongly
that.
willed when it comes? Like if
Oh,
it came down to
Probably absolutely my son. He will he'll look at something and I'll throw out an idea and he'll be like, just, that's horrible, this is terrible, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, this is completely broken, I can't believe you would even put this in. So he does not pull any punches at all. He is right there with it.
well, I mean, like, do you each have like a different strength when it comes to that? Like, is one person better at integrating theme and another person better at this, or is it just kind of like this?
I think it just depends on what's going on. Yeah, I mean, my daughter tends to be really good with the fluff and stuff like that, but she's also, so I always give her that assignment of writing the backstories of the characters, but she's also really good with the rules and coming up with the combos and stuff like that. She's the person in our team that she comes up with the stuff that destroys all the other players. She comes up with the combos that are broken, truly broken, and so every time she comes back to play a game again, we have taken out what she used to win the last time. That's our design strategy. So she gets annoyed at that periodically.
Well, yeah, but I guess that makes her a superb playtester.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So-
she spots that stuff.
What's your favorite game you played this week?
I played Burgle Brothers for the first time, which
Okay.
I really enjoyed. Got to play it on one of the nice 3D sets with the 3 floors of
Is
the
that-
building.
It's an Ocean's 11 style cooperative game where you're
Right,
trying
right.
to do a heist.
By the guy, I think he also did Paperback, which
Yes,
is his other game,
Tim
which I
Ferriss.
also really enjoyed.
And he did Walkstar.
Okay.
Tim
yeah,
Ferriss,
So I really enjoyed that. I played Automania with Scott Nicholson actually taught us that, which I also really enjoyed.
I'm a big fan of Automania. I really like the grid aspect.
Yeah, yeah.
It's similar to Quadropolis.
There's a lot of interesting stuff going there. And those were the 2 biggies that I enjoyed. I've been playing a lot of my prototypes, a lot of other people's prototypes and stuff like that. So that's been most of my time.
We got any questions for?
We don't really know.
Oh, nobody has any questions for me. Gee.
Well, it's pretty quiet in here.
Too early in the morning on a Saturday. Everyone's working on their taxes.
18 people watching.
If you have questions, you can ask anything. We
Sure.
might not answer anything.
Otherwise, I'm going to have to talk about my quantum mechanics worker placement game, and nobody wants that.
Quantum mechanics worker placement?
Yes, yes.
Is that fun?
I think so. Yeah. Each
Well, I think
worker,
so.
when you put workers on, they put them on in pairs, and they are tangled with each other like quantum particles. You put them on 2 different actions, but only one of them is going to be real. The other one is virtual. But you don't know when you put them on. So then at some point you decide which one you want to be real. But that can trigger, if other people are in the same space with you, that can trigger a chain reaction of different workers triggering. So sometimes you have to choose between triggering an action you want or letting an opponent trigger something, which may trigger an action that you don't want as much, but you get it for free without having to take a turn. So that's kind of the core mechanic. It's been pretty neat. So I got a couple plays of that in. So hopefully next year sometime that one will come out. So I'm excited about that one.
Can you say who it's with?
It's not with anybody yet.
Oh,
That
okay.
one that one's still just in
So now you got
development.
publishers.
It
There's
says
your
publishers. It's a good one. Everyone likes a good quantum mechanics based game. And just on other stuff, I'm very excited about. I'm going to plug Ludology. That's
Okay. Bluology is a podcast on the Dice Tower Network, and your co-host is Mr. Mike Fitzgerald.
Mike Fitzgerald, yes, he's been co-host now for about a year, taking over from Ryan Sturm, who you forced me to boot off the show. You said if he stayed on, I could not stay on the network anymore. So
That would be a great story, yes. To clarify, we don't do stuff like that normally.
normally, there are some occasions. So I'm very excited about actually tomorrow's show that's coming on. I interviewed Nolan Bushnell, came on the show. Do you know who?
I'm
Mr.
going to look
Bushnell
down
is?
here. The name isn't ringing a
But
bell.
he's done one thing that's really good and one thing that's really bad. So the really good thing is he's actually the founder of Atari.
Well, that's really good.
Yes, and he's also the founder of Chuck E. Cheese.
As a parent, I'm not.
You're not.
Yeah,
afraid?
that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Really, the guy who founded Atari and Chuck E. Cheese is the same person?
Same guy. Yes.
Gay, too.
So he, we talk about the early days of the video game industry. You know, so all through the '70s when he did Pong and Computer Space and those first games of how do you design games when you're in an entirely new genre. I mean, they had nothing to fall back on. You know, they had to invent, you know, all of the stuff about, you know, players going and having lives and, you know, the games increasing in difficulty as you go on. You know, all of this stuff never existed before. So, you know, what was a creative process like that led to that, to kind of uncovering that? What kind of stuff did they think would work that didn't work? What kind of stuff did they want to do but they just weren't technologically able to do? So it's a pretty interesting. I was really happy to be able to talk to him about that stuff. It was very cool.
Wow, that does sound good. And this is going to go live, you said
It's going
tomorrow?
live tomorrow, yep.
Cool. Still no questions?
The only question I have here is people are asking Jeff what he thinks. Here's how the question is phrased. Besides pandemic, which game or games in the last 5 years will still be important 5 years from now? I'm not sure why they're excluding pandemic.
All right, besides pandemic, well, because pandemic, I guess, is important. I don't know. What
That's the easy
games
answer.
that have come out in the last 5 years will still be important in the future?
Well, besides Pandemic Legacy, I
I
assume they mean?
assume that's what they meant.
Not Pandemic? Okay. Well, I mean, I think that the legacy games are really critical. I think that those are, and I talked about this, the narrative structure. And I think building more narrative into games. So I would actually go back to Risk Legacy as maybe the first one that kind of unlocked that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm teaching a game design class now at NYU. I taught it in the fall, and I'm teaching it again. And when I always ask this question, I ask, you know, for the 2000s, which game do you think is going to be the most significant game? But I rule out Dominion. They're not allowed to say Dominion. So this is a similar thing. So, I mean, other than that.
So you rule out Dominion. What would be the most significant game? Well, I mean, I guess I would say Risk Legacy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the legacy style of games is probably the biggest thing that's come along.
Well, okay, could I say Alien Frontiers? Because it showed that you could do it. I mean, that's a different kind of thing, but it's
In
from an
terms of
economic standpoint, it showed that
the business
Kickstarter was a
model.
viable thing.
Yeah, you could absolutely make a case for that.
Maybe Love Letter, because it showed the world that you could make a game in a small thing in an annoying way, and now everything's tiny epic.
Well, yeah, over
No,
and
no,
over and
that's
over
been
again.
done, I believe, by
But
Steve
I mean, but
Jackson.
there were games like that were out before. I mean, there were the micro game went back to the 70s and the 80s.
You're right.
So it just, you know, it's because it's a different marketplace now. You know, I think it's hard to point to something because the market is so large, and you know, now you've got thousands and thousands of games. It's hard to point to one thing and say this thing is really turning.
What
the
about
market on its
electronic
heads.
integration? XCOM / Alchemists?
I don't think I haven't seen it done to a point where where I'm going to point to a game and say this is the game that got it right, that this is the game that turned the industry, that everybody said, oh, I got to get on that bandwagon and do it this way. I think they're all interesting experiments, Alchemist and XCOM, and you know, I haven't played World of Yoho yet, but things like that. But I don't feel like there's one that's caught on fire in such a way that it's going to really
Yeah, that's true.
explode like that. So I think we're still
Do you
waiting
think it
for
will
that first
happen?
game. Oh, it'll definitely happen.
I wonder what the game will be. That'd be intriguing when it does, because I think that would be something that would turn the
Yeah.
industry on its head.
Yeah, and I think that where it's going to come from, I think, is the intersection of all of that, of the narrative and the legacy concept. with
Ooh, a
handheld
legacy game that involves the phone. Halfway through, you have to break your phone.
Exactly. Take your phone, throw it away. No, but I mean, like even, you know, you look at games like the paragraph games, you look at games like Tales of Arabian Nights or, you know, Above
Right.
and Below and stuff like that. put that on the phone as a first step. Have those paragraphs on an electronic format, and
Well,
then
that
as a
kinda
publisher,
happened with,
I can push out new content. I can push out new adventures. There's ways to do that.
Dead of Winter did that.
Yeah.
And if that continues, that would be a useful thing.
First Martian, he's trying to do that. So that may be that first kind of breakout game.
Well, that'd be intriguing, because I always thought that was a good idea. Like with Dead of
Yeah.
Winter has those Crossroads cards. Hey, if I could just download new packs of Crossroads cards, or just put in 1,000, you'll never have the same game twice.
Right. And you can give a game new legs, like an expansion, except you can just tell people for free or whatever, hey, now, it's a year later after the game came out. There's all new adventures now in your phone, so come back and play this game again. And people will play it, whereas, what Scott was talking about, the shelf life of games now, the half-life is incredibly short. You put a game out there, it has that 2 or 3 month splash. I mean, here, I know that this is, it tends to be the latest and greatest, but like when I was here 2 years ago, everybody was playing Splendor, and I haven't seen one person playing Splendor. I haven't seen anybody, so it's
No,
these
but
games, they come and
that
they go.
particular game does have a little bit more legs than most, but you're right.
Right.
Most games, people don't realize, if you don't, the publishers say that the majority of the sales happen in the first 3 months, and after that, well,
There's
you
a
would know that
few-
as a designer.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few evergreen titles, and every publisher needs one or two. Stronghold's got Survive, and Z-Man's got Pandemic, and whatever. But there's, once you get past that, it's like the movie industry or the book industry. They come out, people watch them, and then 2 months later, 2 weeks later for movies, they're off the top 10 list, and nobody's going to see them anymore. So.
Well, Jeff, I appreciate. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, people wanted to quickly ask you, what local cons do you go to? I guess they want to run into you.
I go to, what local cons do I go to? That was the question. So I go to, the big one is called DexCon, which is in Morristown, New Jersey. So there's the group that runs that. They run 3 big conventions a year. DexCon in July. Dreamation is in the
Don't go
February
to
timeframe.
DexCon.
It's not the same time as Dice Tower Con.
You can go to DexCon.
I'll go to both. And in November, they have a really interesting convention called Metatopia, which is all about playtesting. So you can sign up as either a designer or playtesters are basically free, I think. And they put you put your likes in the type of people you're looking for as a designer, and they'll put it together and set up playtests. So that's a really interesting one as well. So I like to go to that one. I also go to ConCon when possible, which is in Connecticut in March, I think. So,
All right.
yeah, any of those you can run into me. And, hey, if you're ever in the New Jersey area, reach out. I very frequently will go to lunch or whatever with people that are in the area, so feel free to reach out and say hi.
All right. Well, now, thank you for
Okay.
coming on the show. We
That's
appreciate it. All right, we're going to do some switching here. Z's going to switch out with me, and Jeff is going to switch out with Jay, because it's
Thanks.
definitely your turn.
Oops, hooked up.
Yeah, we gotta figure that
We
out.
got to do one at a time because of the. Well, no, we need another mic is our thing.
Which
This
will
one's
come
yours.
soon.
We'll have 3 mics. We'll have 3 mics soon enough. Jason, you can switch to the.
It's going to be interesting once I ask you all the questions about your games, and then Sinful is just going to come back and be like, yeah, everything Jay said.
Oh, great.
Oh,
We'll save it. Godfather
yes.
talk, you talk to Sen, I guess. Keyboard Godfather.
Okay, sure, you got it. Hey, everybody. I haven't been up here yet today.
Hey.
All right. So, for those people that might not recognize you, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, I'm Jay Cormier. I'm half of a design team with Sen Fung Lim. I think he will be up next. We design games like Belfort and Akrotiri and But Wait There's More and Tortuga and Train of Thought and et cetera, et cetera. And this town ain't big enough for the 2 to 4 of us.
You know, it's funny. I was just talking about this last night. We played this last night, like Jason said, and we were talking about how you guys make games that are so different from each other.
Cool.
I don't know if you consciously do that.
Yes.
You push for that. You
Yeah.
want like your next game to not be like any of your previous games.
Not only that, but we want our games to not be like any game. We always want to add something new to the gaming world. We want to have something different about it. It's got to have a reason for it to exist. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
got to like, why is this here?
Now, once you guys are going back to the drawing table, do you both look at your previous games and look at sort of the state of the state of the union, if you would, and see what's out there, what's hot and purposely try to avoid those things?
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, I think it's, Sen and I believe that it's important for designers to play a lot of games.
Sure, absolutely.
And so we just want to play a ton of games so that when we start designing games, we feel, well, this has kind of been done over here, this has kind of been done over here. And case in point was our game Orphan Black.
Okay.
And when we were designing that game, we were asked to make it a social deduction game. And so there are some pretty big social deduction games out there already. And so as we started designing, we would go down one path and we'd realize as we started playing it, we're like, well, this is just kind of like Resistance. So like we can't do that. And then we played again and it was like, well, this is just coup now. You know, so it was like, well, we have to come up with something different. And for that one, for example, we feel like we came up with something different in the world of social deduction. So that was our goal.
Okay, cool. Now this one here
Yes.
is probably one of your lighter games, even though you did, I mean, but Wait There's More is pretty light.
Sure,
light,
of course,
light
party
work
game, yeah.
Let's bust this thing open and take a look at it because it's got some pretty funky
Yeah,
looking
this is really
stuff in
cool.
there.
This is called,
Sure thing.
this is called Junk Art. And the concept of this game is it comes with 60 pieces, 15 pieces in 4 different colors. So 15 of the same pieces in 4 different colors. And so they're all really cool, weird pieces that all fit together. There's slots and stuff like that, and holes that things fit into. And the concept is that the main base game, which we just call the hometown game, is everyone has their own base. And there's cards. This is what I think the novel thing that Sid and I did with this game is that every piece has its own card.
Right.
And that allows us to kind of create a system and have a bunch of different games in it. But the main game is that you take 2 cards, and it's kind of like an I cut, you choose, like a slice the cake kind of game, where I put between me and my person on the left these 2 pieces. You choose one to put on your base. I get the other one, and then you get points for pieces touching the same color or same shape.
Right.
And that really motivates suboptimal play, where people are like, I can put this on top. This is great. I'll get tallest, which is also a way to get points. But if I put it down here and kind of try to squeeze it in, I'll get a couple points. And so that's pretty fun.
Yeah, you can actually use the pieces to kind of push around other pieces.
Yes.
You can't touch the other pieces.
Right.
But you can sort of use that one piece you're about to play to be like, move over a little bit, and I'll just leave it there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the second game from the pretzel game lineup.
Right.
Where the first one was the pretty immensely popular Flick 'em Up, which is on its second expansion right now.
Right.
So this is coming out for Gen Con this year. It'll be available for public. It'll be available to play at Origins.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, how much thought of this design went into picking the shapes of the bits?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Is it like this? You guys just like find a bunch of random stuff and go after a while? This one.
Yeah.
No,
I'm actually going to preface that with another teeny story about how I went to Gamma many years ago with a game called Up in the Air, and it was a card game about juggling, and it was a partner card game because we like Tishu a lot, and we're like, well, it'd be cool to make a partner card game. And so I remember we were pitching it to R&R, and I'm like, oh, it's a card game, it's juggling, and the higher the number, the harder it is. Like number 12 is like they're cats you're juggling. And he thought, well, that's pretty funny, let's play it. And we started playing it. Within a minute, he's like, that's not for me. No, it might be a great game or whatever, but I just thought it was more fun based on the fact that you're juggling cats. I thought it was more of like goofy kind of game. And so we took that feedback back and we're like, well, we could do a couple things with it. We could either make the game goofier or make it more thematically feel like it's about that, or we could just keep pitching to the publishers. And we thought, well, how do you make a game that's about cat juggling or something? And then we came up with the idea, well, maybe there's dexterity involved because it's juggling. And then dexterity led to stacking, and then it became a totally different game.
Sure.
No cards, and it became this kind of game about stacking. And so then we went to our craft stores and like Home Depots, and we just started buying every little bit of piece of wood. And we had like 50 different pieces of wood, and we started figuring out what's fun and what's interesting. And we started really liking when there were synergies. And so, this fits in here, and this can be balanced on that, and this can rest in here. And so we just kind of pared it down until we had the 15 best ones.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I like the fact that in the game you have sort of different ways to play with all the same bits, right?
That's right. One of my favorite is they're all based on cities because you're a junk artist, and so you're going from city to city kind of touring. My favorite one is Montreal. Because it's their only Canadian city, and so there's a lot of apologizing what happened in this city, because basically you challenge a person on your left with one card, hey, put this on there, and everyone does that 3 times in a row. after 3 times in a row, actually everyone stands up and they move and inherit that structure that they were just passing cards to. And so what that does is people are building the most rickety-rackety kind of things that are just about to fall. They're so precarious, and they move over, and it's last man standing
You deal
wins.
with this now.
Exactly. So,
Right. Let me ask you about what you've been able to play here. What's been the most fun thing you've come across?
like I played Karuba.
Oh man, I love
that's
Karuba.
that's going to be a great like cafe game kind
Yeah,
of thing, because it's
yeah.
just it has luck, uncertainty, but it doesn't have luck that differentiates the players.
Right.
So I mean, that's gonna, it's pretty fair. In
So
that sense.
fast, no downtime.
Yeah, take it easy with a theme for those that are
Right.
you know,
Sure.
So that's great.
So you liked it? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I like that one. There's one from CGE called Adrenaline. It was kind of like a shooter game, but like very Euro-wise, no dice, which was pretty interesting. I really
And
like
that's
that
in
one.
prototype stage.
Yeah,
That one,
still there's-
Adrenaline.
that's right. Yeah, they're still kind of figuring that one out. And Team Play, which is a small little card game in which you have little goals and you have to pass cards to your partner.
Right.
And play cards and try to accomplish goals, and you just accomplish 8 goals as a team. And it was just kind of a nice, fun, quick, clever little game.
I've seen everybody playing that. I did try it a couple nights ago. It was really late though when I played it at
Right.
night. I mean, it was like late.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that impressed with
Okay.
it. I'm not sure if it's because it was so late and I was so tired and we were kind of dragging the game
You got to
out.
really pay attention to your partner, because you got to pass him stuff that he'll need.
Right,
See
right.
what he's taken already. So, we've taken a 2. I bet you're going to need this other 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to try it again. It seems, again, like it's getting a lot of good buzz,
yeah.
especially for a little card game.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen. You know?
And the rest of my time pretty much just been either promoting this or playtesting some of our prototypes, or playtesting some other designers' games.
Yeah, well, you guys definitely have a few things coming up. I know I played another one, but like you said, we're going to save it for Sen when he comes up here.
yeah.
Any questions? And once he sets the question, I will go ahead and repeat it just so everybody out there can hear it.
They're asking, since you designed such a variety of games, which do you find easier to design between party games and strategy?
Okay, so the question is, since you've designed so many different games, what style of game do you find easier to design? And I'm going to say also easier to play test and that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, that's a good question. I think strategy game, once you get to a Euro-sized game like a Belfort or an Akrotiri
Sure.
that we've designed, I mean, those are harder. I mean, there's more pieces moving. The amount of playtesting you have to do increases because there's so many different paths to victory and strategies to try that you got to try them all and you got to figure it out. And we've been making a game, a card battling game about Godzilla, where Godzilla versus Muto or versus Rodan, and so each player has a deck of cards. And we've been playtesting that for over 2 years. And that's a big investment in time to try to figure that one out, because the balancing takes forever.
Yeah.
So a party game doesn't have as much balancing, but what party game needs is that creative idea, which is sometimes harder. You can't just sit there and go, I'm going to design a party game right now. It's like, because it feels like everything's been done.
Right.
Until you see
Right,
something like
right,
Code
right.
Names come out, and you're like, oh, well, that hasn't been done yet.
And
But to come up with that
right.
one idea, that's awesome. That's the hard part of party games.
Yeah, you need that spark. The
Yeah.
spark is sort of, and then like you're saying, in Euro games, you can kind of find that spark as you go.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You
look
know.
at Belfort. I mean, it didn't do anything new in the sense it's got area control, it's got worker placements, it's got card management, resource management. That's in a lot of games. Maybe how it came together felt kind of different and nice and stuff like that, but just the amount of play testing.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And I assume something like Akrotiri, which is only a 2-player game, is probably a little easier to get to the table more often, because you and Sen could do it, right? I mean,
Yes and no. Yes and no, because it actually started as a 2 to 5 player game.
did it? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was a publisher that actually requested to go down to 2-player on that one, because it was there's just too much downtime. Anytime you have a tile laying game, I play a tile, I gotta wait for 4 other people to play a tile before I play my next tile. So the world's changed so much, so I can't even start to process what I could do on my turn until it's my turn. And
Right.
that's always a danger in most tile laying games,
Right.
except for a tile laying game we have coming out later this year called Simplicity from a different publisher.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
we'll try to solve that issue.
I like that. Have you guys done another tile laying game besides Akrotiri?
Well, this town ain't big enough for the 2 to 4 of us.
Okay, right. Anything else?
There was that criteria question, but it was just answered, so nothing else at the moment.
So you guys have that Akrotiri, or quote
Yeah.
unquote Akrotiri 2 to 5 on the back burner somewhere, thinking about how to solve that problem and put out a game that plays more players?
Yeah, we've figured it out. I mean, There's some that have tried that by having you build on your own city or your own area.
Okay.
But then you have multiplayer solitaire issues you have to solve.
Sure,
And so we think we've solved that pretty well with the game coming out. Maybe this year or next year.
That is simplicity.
Simplicity,
yeah.
like city, simplicity.
Simplicity. That's cute.
Simplicity, yeah.
That's cute. Anything else? Okay, cool. I think we're good. Let's move on to Sen.
All right, thanks everybody.
That was a good chat with you, my friend.
Thanks, Z.
Yeah, you got it, man. We're gonna get the other half of this dynamic duo, Sen Fung Lim, who is coming in here now. How you doing, Sen?
Good. Look at your red badges.
I know, aren't we cute? We're noobs.
Yes, we're noobs here.
When you come here for the first time, folks, they give you a red badge. It looks pink to me. I think it's a pink badge.
It's red.
The red
But,
badge of courage.
But yeah, we're calling it the red badge of courage. And so after the first year, then you no longer get a red badge. But everybody notices if it's red. And a lot of people welcome you, and some people mock you.
No, it's not mockage. It's a sign of love and affection, Z.
Oh, oh, you're so cute. You're so cute and new.
Yeah.
All right, Sen, good to have you on.
Good to see you, sir.
We just talked, of course, a lot about Junkyard and all of that, and you're holding a whole different game here.
Whole different game.
That I also got to play earlier in the week.
Good.
Tell us a little bit about this one here.
Well, this is The Godfather: A New Dawn, and oddly enough, there are 3 Godfather games coming out this year.
There are, aren't there?
Well, or that have already come out. So Nate Murray and oh yes, the other Nathan from Pandasaurus did a retake of Mafia, and
Right.
that's the first Godfather game that came out from IDW. And it's a card game, basically a take on Mafia that is gone to like the extremes.
Right.
And then Eric Lang, of course, is doing Godfather with Komini. So that'll have some nice miniatures. It's a kind of area selection game with a
Right.
kind of plot that goes along with it.
Yeah, and some card play,
yeah.
some mean card play on top
and
of that.
some hiding of stuff into briefcases and stuff. So yeah, so Eric and I have already apologized to each other. Being Canadian, you know, we often apologize. I know Jay's already used that joke, but we did. Oh, sorry, man. Oh, sorry, it's okay. And then there's this one, Godfather: A New Dawn, which is a hilarious pun that I did not come up with. I'm not sure who did. But it's actually about really the story progressing past The Godfather in a little way,
Right.
where you have the map of the city broken up into districts, and you're using a dice-driven area control mechanic to take over the city as the 5 families plus the other family in there. That is really carving up the city, but using a dice-driven mechanic. So it takes a little bit of what we liked about area control from Belfort with similar scoring, but then using some dice mechanics and some interplay between players, including, you know, making that offer that you can't refuse, to get dice from other people, sending people to the river when you bump them off, using muscle to muscle in on other people's territories, kicking them out, and sending people to Las Vegas, just like in the movie, and then they can get additional resources and things like that, which are really just dice, to further their goals of taking over New York one borough at a time.
Right, right. So it's I mean, it feels like an area control game, you know, an area majority game, whatever. But I do like, and Jay was just talking about this, how you guys solve the problem of not letting the game feel like multiplayer solitaire. You know, I love I got to play it a few days ago. I love the idea of having to offer a die to whoever is the leader for the round, and the action there. You know, I can give you a die, you can take it, and I get a little bonus for later on. Or if you don't want it, you can ask me for any die, and if it's behind my shield, I have to give it to you because I can't refuse you. But if I don't have any, then you get nothing.
Right.
And I love that. I love how it's a game that could have easily been just plop down the dice and try to control the area, but not a whole lot going on between the players. But it really does encourage the talking and getting to the movie and all of that stuff. And so you guys, I think I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great way to tackle that issue, you know.
I think Scott, when we were listening to Scott talk about, you know, how he plays video games recreationally now instead of board games, because he teaches that all day long. one thing that Jay and I really want to avoid is that multiplayer solitaire situation. It's not that we don't like those games, it's just that that doesn't reflect who Jay and I are as game designers and game players even. We actually got into game design because we wanted to stay together as friends. Jay moved out west, like about, all the way across the country pretty much. And we decided, hey, we like games, let's make games as a way to spend time together. And so when we spend time together, we don't want to spend time doing our own thing in our own little section, and then, hey, what did you do over there? It doesn't really matter because I've got 20 points and you got 19. That wasn't fun for us.
Gotcha.
And so we make games that we want to play, so all of our games pretty much have that idea of interaction, whether or not we think consciously of it, or whether or not we are designing that after the fact, after we come up with a cool mechanic, they say, now we've got to add some interaction in there. They'll always have that kind of, you need another person there to play it, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe that's why none of our games have been appified yet, who knows? Because you need another person.
Sure, and that's a valid point. What's been some of the favorite games you've played while you've been here?
Well, Jay already talked about team plays. I like team games, so that was fun. I actually got to play it's actually AJ Porfirino's Hostage Negotiator. Solo games have been a real interest of me, and that's funny coming off the tail end of talking about interaction.
Sure.
But solo gaming has been an interest of mine for this year, sort of just because of Twitter. I found all these people who are talking about playing games solo on Twitter, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of people. And it's not saying that, I want to make a game for that market. It's just, what is interesting about solo gaming? What makes a good solo game? And so I asked a lot of questions on Twitter about that. I know Evan was telling me, Evan Derrick, who works for Van Ryder Games, was telling me that the solo guild on BGG is the third biggest guild.
Really?
Behind you guys and and the Secret Cabal.
That's right. Take it, Secret Cabal. And also Solo Guild.
Yeah, and then the Solo Guild is number 3. But that's a huge number of people when you think about it that are playing games by themselves. And it sounds kind of sad in a way, but I guess it's really not, because it keeps their brain kind of active in the flow of gaming and thinking about games. And from my perspective as a psychologist, that's really cool to see people actually do this as an activity that then they take and they play regular games with regular people, but they enjoy playing games so much that they do it alone. And it's neat.
Yeah.
Like reading a book.
Yeah, or playing a video game, right? If you play alone, until this whole play online with people thing came along, that's what you did.
Yeah, and so they like playing games. They like the kinesthetics of moving pieces around and rolling dice.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool.
Now, let me ask you,
Sure.
It seems to me that you are the more analytical between you and Jay, because he's just a big goof, Do you guys find when you are designing a game that certain responsibilities or certain aspects of game design sort of land on your plate and certain ones land on his plate?
Oh, 100%. And some of it's just due to hardware restrictions. Like I use my Macintosh is like 8 years old. It's as old as my youngest child. I remember I got it the year that my youngest child was born. So that's how I recognize how old it is. And it won't run the software that we use to do any of the graphic design. So Jay does all the graphic design.
Okay.
I'll piddle in there with this little netbook that he lent me and do my little thing that basically crashes my whole system. And then that's a lot of that. Jay also, because this is, congratulations to Jay. He got married this year, and this is...
hey, all right.
Yeah.
Dude, congrats.
Yeah, man.
Congratulations,
And
man.
so, he's just building his family now, and I've had a family for 12, 15 years. And so, unfortunately, playtesting, a lot of that also falls on Jay's plate in terms of the volume. So I'll get playtests in with my team. It just won't be as regular as Jay's because he doesn't have the commitments that I have. And so he's committed to this, which is really good because it helps progress things along. So there are definite responsibilities between the both of us. Analytically, I typically will plan our trips, even if I'm not going, because Jay once went to Essen without me. This big meanie goes to Essen without me, I know. But I'll go and I'll plan, this is who's there, here's the targets for these products.
Right.
Here's where they're going to be, this is the booth number, here's the route that you're going to take, that kind of thing. So the logistics, as much as I don't want to do logistics, I'll do them just to make it easier for Jay to do his job. And Jay's really the pitch man. He's a seller. He grew up in retail, and so He's really personable, as you could probably tell by watching him, and he's a good speaker. And when he demos, people are engaged, and I'm not that person, not really.
Well, you'd rather let him do it anyway, right?
Well,
I
no,
mean,
no,
if
no.
you-
I don't mind doing it. I can do it okay, but he's just that much better. So we recognize the strengths that
Right.
each of us
Sure,
have,
sure.
and we really parlay that into coming up with the best product. So I'll do a lot of the writing and the rewriting and the editing after Jay does a first pass.
You're the idea man.
I'm the idea man. Yeah. Oh yeah. Every day we have a challenge. I don't know if we've lived up to that challenge, but we have a forum that we write on because Jay lives across the country, and so we keep track of our ideas on the forum. And pretty much, it doesn't happen anymore, but once a day, every day for the first couple of years of game designing, I would put a new idea on that forum just to keep it stimulating and keep it going. And a good number of them became games or got worked into games.
Really?
So yeah, definitely an idea a day is a good idea. So take that and do it.
That's your nugget of gold for the day, folks. There you go. You know, it was interesting because I was going to ask you. I think it's fascinating. You guys pretty much always work together, right? I mean, when you're designing games, I was wondering if that led to a lot of one person bringing an idea and the other person shutting that down, be like, no, and that's it. And we're working on something else.
We're really actually. I mean, Jay and I are friends first. We've been friends for decades. We were housemates in university, and it's funny again because Scott was mentioning the escape room experience that he really liked.
Yeah.
That's another one of our roommates who did that.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
so
Neat.
we kind of grew up in a big gaming household, and we've always been friends. So we never really shut each other down. We just recognize when somebody's really passionate about one idea, and we let that kind of flow. And I'm going to go really close to Z because I think he's very nice. Yeah, so we do that a lot. We will focus on one idea, but recognize the value in all the other ideas. And because we respect each other very much, we're best friends. So we don't fight about what idea to do. We just know that one is going to be a priority. And if somebody is really, hot on the tail of one idea, then that's the way we're going to go. And there's no real discussion point. It just happens organically.
Yeah, you're going to pursue it.
Yeah.
If the other person is really passionate about it.
Right, exactly. So we have a motto, I guess you could call it one of our mantras is follow the fun, and it also it's within the game, but also around all the games that we design. It's like, which one's the most fun to do right now? Let's do that one.
Sure.
Because we don't want this to be a grind. We both have day jobs that are grinds. Not really, they're okay. But we don't want game design to become a grind, and so the minute it becomes really hard work, won't be fun anymore.
Sure. About how many games do you guys keep up in the air at the same time?
Between the two of us, and then we have other projects that we work on with other people. Probably about 12, 15 games.
Really?
That are sort of in the process at any given stage of either being published, in contract negotiation, in like gamma testing, in beta testing, or in alpha. Oh, alpha, there's tons. There's like, that's just ridiculous. So that's not, I don't even count those. But in these other 4 or 5 stages, there's probably about 15 games at a time that just Jay and I are working on. Then we all have little side projects with other designers.
Oh, okay.
We very rarely design on our own, just because our lives don't let us do that.
Do you find that just to be kind of put you in a groove a little bit?
Oh, totally.
There's a lot of designers, seems a lot of French designers especially, that love working in teams of 2, right? And they do switch back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Like Bruno Catala,
Yeah.
Faiduti, and Ludovic Montblanc, and all
Well,
of
I
those
mean,
guys.
Canadians are pretty much half French, right? So
Sure, and
so
that's,
there
maybe
you go.
that's a thing.
Maybe it is. I mean, the other thing is that I find communication is a big part of most games. No matter what you're doing, whether you're communicating rules to people or you're communicating to each other in a social deduction game. And so I think working with other people is a really good way of getting the best product possible. Sure, you're going to divide your dividends, but in the end, I'm not about the money.
You're not going to make that much
no,
money
anyways,
anyway.
right? I'm more about, can we make a really cool experience
Yeah,
for people?
yeah.
And so we recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses, as I said before. And then when you meet up with other designers who you kind of click with, it's like, oh, we should design a game together. And yeah, we should. And I know that, just even Dom from North Star was talking about collaborating with other designers. Eric and Kevin are always talking about collaboration with other designers. So I think it's not a new thing, but it's definitely a thing where you're going to see more big names coming together as little, super groups, kind of going on tour.
Yeah, it's just a stimulation thing.
Yeah, and that's it too, right?
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have one question.
Okay, go for it.
Have you or Jay just thought about doing a game on your own and not as a collaboration?
Well, we kind of answered that, but the question is, has Sen or Jay, have either one of them thought about designing a game on their own? You sort of just answered this, but is there something?
Well, there have been, right?
Is there something you work on? Let's put it that way. Is there something you work on to a fairly advanced point, at which moment you decide, okay, I'm going to bring somebody else in on this?
Jay's designed a game all by himself. He took the training wheels off and did it. No.
Aww.
Yeah. And it's called...
He's all grown up now.
I
He's
know.
married, designing on his own.
It's a logic deduction game called The Mystery of Mr. E. And he brought it here to Gathering last year, and Josh and I helped him tweak it a little bit, and then he's taken it, and it's his baby, and whatever he does with it. And I wish him well. It's awesome.
Yeah, I got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, good talking to you, man.
talking
I
to you, sir.
appreciate it.
Thanks for playing our games.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys are doing good stuff. I really
Thanks, man.
like your styles. So yeah. All right, let me take this off of you. Oh, let me take that. Oh wait, we got caught up in there.
Is it around it?
There we go. I got you.
Thanks so much, man.
All right, thanks. All right, so I'm going to be switching with Jason, and I apologize in advance. How you doing? All right, come on, Jason. All right, have a seat. Let's get you mic'd. That one's for you. If you want to go ahead and just clip that on there somewhere. And yep. You go. Hold on to that. And this is for you. Let's take this here. Thanks, everybody. It should be okay.
So,
fine.
let me mic myself up, and we're here with one of my favorite companies. I've been talking about them a lot this year, actually. Splotter. So if you guys have questions for Splotter, this is your chance to ask everything. And you guys have obviously a big hit now with Food Chain Magnate. For your company, it's been a little different because you usually only do a very small print run, you sell it at Essen, and that's it, and then people can't get it.
Yes, typically our idea is both yours and I have different day jobs, so we run Splotter as a hobby. So what we always try to do with a new game is print enough to last about a year until the next Essen, and after that we will see about a new print run. Typically not immediately, but a few years after.
So for Food Chain Magnate, though, you're on what, the 4th print run already?
Well, we ordered the 5th print run, I think last week, just before coming here.
Has it been a surprise for you to see a game take off this well? And
well, as you can tell by the number 5, yes, very much so. I think our printer was already joking with us when I called him the 3rd time, and ordered again, and he said, "Are you sure that's going to be enough?"
Which, of course, come the 6th print run. So I know there's a lot of people in the U.S. here who are still like, I want to get my hands on it. I want to get my hands on it. So for you guys, I know you're also doing reprints of a lot of your other games now. It seems like Indonesia is going to be reprinted with the new map, and
we're going to do Great Zimbabwe and Indonesia this year as well. They should be ready by Essen, maybe a bit before. I don't know yet.
So is this going to be a new trend with Splotter, that you're going to not just do the print the game and have it for Essen through Essen, but try to do more, keep up with demand?
I don't know yet, honestly, because, well, as you said, the success of Food Chain also surprised us. And typically what we do is, in a year where we don't have a new game, we will do one or more reprints. This year we decided to do both Indonesia and Zimbabwe.
And I'm guessing that people are going to ask it shortly, but Antiquity, is there another plan to reprint that again?
Probably, but maybe next year, though I hope we have a new game finished by next year, and then it will bump up 1 year, I guess. So there definitely is going to be another reprint, but I can't promise when yet.
Mm-hmm. So when you guys work, how do you kind of work as a team? does one of you come up with the idea for the game, or do you work together? How's the collaboration for these games?
Yeah, we work a lot together because there's a couple of stages. I think you could call it, because we first try and essentially just discuss about what do we want to be the game about, what type of mechanisms. Try to come up with at least one original mechanism, because that's one thing we love to do. And then quite a lot of time is spent on just play testing that one mechanism, just playing around with it, see how it works. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a game yet, because there's no game end, there's typically no victory conditions yet. Maybe not even the beginning and how you get to it. Yeah,
no, inspirations. I know we've played here 18X, and it's one of my favorite games of all time, any 18X. And I see that you got a lot of inspiration from that. I mean, you did 18. You are a long time ago in your line, and tell me about your inspirations for how you got into game design.
Excuse me. For Joris it's easier, because I think he started designing his first game when he was about 6 years old. For me it's a bit more recent, but during my student days I met Joris and a couple of others. We started a gaming society in Leiden at university, because there wasn't any yet. And fairly soon we ran out of games to play and started fiddling with the rules a little bit, and then also thought, well, let's make something together. A couple of the computer games, the video games we also played were the original Settlers computer game, not yet the board game, because that wasn't out yet. Civilizations, things like that. So we thought, like, wouldn't it be fun to have a game like that, and that became Roads and Boats, which was the first game we started designing together, even though it wasn't the first game published.
Yeah, I mean, Roads and Boats is a great network, route, pickup, delivery, all of that, and it came in at the time, people weren't making these games in these giant-sized boxes with all these pieces. And did you just want to throw everything in there in the box when you did it?
Well, if you would look back at the design notes for Roads and Boats now, there were tons and tons of extra stuff that we cut out to make it a proper game. Because I think we had sailboats at some time. The whole research process was even more involved than it is now. There was 3 or 4 extra steps involved. So, what is, at least for us, very usual in a game design, we will start out with, after we get through the mechanism process, we'll have this huge game, and then after the first few play tests, we chug out half, we have this much game, we have this much game, we have this much game, we add a little bit, we have this much game left, and this is what's getting published. Because that part is the good game. Because, as we've also often remarked, we really like all the decisions in a player turn or to be meaningful. I mean, if you're not really doing something that can impact the game end, even in your first turn, then why do that first turn? And similarly, at the end of the game, once it's clear that somebody is going to win anyway, why do the last few turns that just has one person shooting up and the rest just dribbling along a bit? We've been criticized for that as well, because a lot of people really like to run the engines that they've built. But for us, it's like, well, it's clear now, you're going to win anyway, so carry on.
Yes, exactly. Once you get the engine, you're like, I've built this great engine, I'm chugging along, and then boom, you got it. And I agree with you on that. But you did actually add in more pieces to Roads and Boats when you put the planes and trains, etc., and everything else into it. Were those were original ideas that you brought back in?
No, those actually were all new ideas at the time. Let me see. No, I don't think any of them were ones that we chucked out.
And
but the etc. Well, mainly etc. expansion we designed while Joris was away for a year doing his MBA. So we sneaked in an expansion while he wasn't looking.
So he wasn't. You were mostly involved with that one then. You took most of the design time on it then.
we still both did, but maybe a bit more mine, I don't know. Because one thing I really like about etc. is having an alternate path to victory with all the art exhibitions, which is a completely different way than producing gold.
Yes, and so what do you have in the works? And I know you were saying that you have something planned for Essen. Are you able to talk about it now, or is it still in the development phase?
It's still very early in the development phase, so at the moment it's about a huge bureaucracy. It might very well be about archaeology tomorrow. I don't know yet. So we're still just looking at a few mechanisms.
Yeah, yeah, and heavy euros. I mean, it's funny because, especially on our show, or at least from Tom, Tom, we need to look at questions anyway, so I'm going to distract him. But heavy euros is kind of a niche market, but you're kind of the company that's known mostly for making these great heavy euros. And have you always thought we want to make meatier, heavier games, or was it just what you guys were working on together? Or how come every game is so deep and so rich?
Essentially because that's the type of games both Joris and myself really love to play. And actually, to tell you a funny story, at the start of Splotter, we founded the company in order to make small, fun, inexpensive games. So the first 6 or 7 games that we produced.
Could you move your mic to the other side?
Okay.
Because that's the side problem. Jason, just remember that for anyone.
I didn't like him as he did. I blame him.
So the first 6 or 7 games we did were small games in a VHS cassette. So
like
Web,
Beast.
Tetragons, Oracles. No, Based was in a small box even. That was a bit later. And that was while we were working on Roads and Boats. And we one time brought the Roads and Boats prototype to Essen, which was a big box with a lot of pieces, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, what's that?" So next year we decided, well, let's also publish that. We handcrafted 30 copies, like we did also with the other games, and that one was a huge success. That was the one we did a real print run of first, and that's the type of games we stuck with and are known for.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of my favorite companies when it comes to games because I love the richness and the thought process. Like on Food Chain Magnate, the whole how you kind of construct your people, you have your managers, and you have to construct them and construct all the thing. Where did you come up with that idea for it's kind of like a tech tree, but a deck building tech tree?
Yeah, it's evolved. It evolved a bit over time, because one of the things we were playing around with also is, do we want to make a deck building game at some point? And this is, or at least this part is what grew out of that. So we always like to have our own unique twist on things.
Well, do we have any questions?
We got it. Unfortunately, and he has to go to the.
Oh, yes. Oh, because of the
flea market.
The flea market.
But
so
I still have 10 minutes or so.
Right, but we need to move on. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we have one more guest who, speaking of 18X, he's designing his 18X game, which is Tom Lehman.
One of my favorite designers.
Yes, one of my favorites too, even though right now your company is my favorite company. I mean, between Antiquity and Zimbabwe and Roads and Boats and, of course, Food Chain Magnate, which was my favorite game last year.
Yeah,
it's so great to be able to talk to you about all this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Alrighty, Tom. Thank you very much.
Yes. We're kind of hurrying this up because there's a flea market in like 15 minutes. You get me, Tom.
Woohoo!
Let's
do it. Him, I get to tease and really fight back on.
Oh, you could tease him. You could tease him. He's sitting over there. So we're going to tease Tom from the side. But let's talk about. I want to start off with 1846.
Yes, that's something that we definitely need to talk about.
Since I'm an 18X fan, I think I'm the only one in the Dice Tower who actually plays 18X. I'm trying to get
who's
Tom
excited about.
I'm trying to get Tom to play it, and we're kind of looking at him now, saying, "This one you have to try."
What?
No, he doesn't have to try it.
Tom made a very short, streamlined 18X game called 1846. So
Yep. Right.
It's like plays in about 2 hours, 2.5. Tom, I'm trying to convince him.
We've played in under an hour already at the gathering once.
Under an hour. There you go.
Yeah.
For
So are we
anyone.
on or
Oh
not?
yeah, we're live.
Ah, great.
We're talking with the
Great.
audience. This is
Okay. I didn't know whether we were in setup mode.
no,
still
no,
or
no.
not.
This is all live. We're
Okay,
teasing
yes.
him.
So we are finishing up the production on 1846. I have some rules notes that we're trying to fit in the examples and do it. Because, one of the challenges is that the 18XX games have been viewed as being its own separate little hobby, disconnected from the other things. And 1846, sometimes its detractors call it 18XX, the Euro game, right? Because it is a shorter, faster, high growth game. But I'm very excited that GMT has decided to pick it up as their first 18XX. Hopefully they'll do more. And Mart Simonich of GMT is the person I'm working with. And he's been a pleasure to work with. And we got the map, and I put out a draft version on BGG for people to look at. And we got a lot of comments on it. But we managed to tread the line between keeping it functional, which a lot of the core 18XX players like, while putting in just a little bit of artwork, softening some of the harshness, using nicer colors. Because, you're staring at that thing for a couple hours, and you want it to be reasonably, not headache-inducing. And from the comments, you can't please everyone, but from the comments, it looks like we've managed to tread that sweet spot between the two. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that the whole product will be well received.
I think it should be. I played the original, Deep Thought version, and love it. And it's a nice short one, and it is the one we're going to get him to play at some point when we get him to play another one.
Right. Deep Thought Games has been really supportive. They turned over their files to GMT to use as a base. And what I've done is I've split my design fee with John Tamplin of Deep Thought Games to thank him for all his support he's done, not only in the production of this version, but over the years, for the 18XX hobby. And I'm hoping that model, should they decide to pick up a different one of mine, will continue, because that way he gets something, a thank you, and some of the money from GMT to help continue producing new kits for new 18XX games.
Yes. Now, for those of you who don't know, Deep Thought is a small person. It's actually one person, and he basically prints all these different 18X games that people design, print on demand, essentially. So he's only printing as he goes, and it's very nice for the 18X hobby.
Right. The big problem is that now the hobby has grown, plus the number of titles have grown beyond the ability of any one person, particularly at the high quality standards that John has, to keep up with demand. So in some cases, the waiting time is 3-4 years to get a game from Deep Thought Games. And that's part of why there's been pressure to try to bring 18XX by other routes. Last year, John has gradually trained up two other small company groups, two other small companies to do it at his standards. So for 1846, there's now you can buy expedited, jump the queue for an extra 25 or 30 bucks or something and get a copy. But GMT is going to come in substantially lower, so that's another good route.
Yes.
So, part of it is taking the best 18XX titles, the most popular ones, and getting them out there.
Now, you did another game that was similar back in old times, 2038, and you actually did a lot of games with TimJim, obviously, back in the day. Can you talk a little about your TimJim experience?
Well, that's where I learned I wasn't a great board game publisher. So what happened there is the typical problem that a new publishing company has is maybe you have one, maybe two games, and it's hard to get a distributor to pick you up. And TimJim had Outpost, and I had Fast Food Franchise with Prism, my game. And we liked each other's games. We were testing each other's games. So we said, let's solve this problem by joining up forces and having a combined line. And so eventually we had 3 TimJim games and 5 Prism games. And that gave us something that we could sell and do well with, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of great games I felt that came out of that. I mean, beyond Outpost, you had like Suzerain that you did, and obviously Outpost inspired Phoenicia.
Yes. Phoenicia is a game I like very much. It's just happened to have come out when the market turned against auction games. There have been very few auction games in the last 15 years. In the late 90s, there was a huge glut of them. You know, it's like you couldn't walk into a game store without tripping over one of these suckers. And Phoenicia sort of appeared on the tail end of that wave, so it hasn't gotten quite the attention that I think it deserves. It's one of the few games of mine that I never get to play that I really want to play.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
mostly, you know, when you're done with a game, you've played it, 50, 100, 500 times, and I don't want to play the game for, 5 years if I can avoid it. But Phoenicia is one I actually enjoy playing.
Well, we have a lot of questions here.
Oh, yes, we do.
I want to jump into some of these because
Sure.
while Jason is very excited about 18XX, the world itself.
They want to talk about Race for the Galaxy and Roll for the Galaxy, I'm guessing. So
Sure,
let's
there's
talk
some
about your
things
most
there.
popular games.
What do you think about a similar game about Race for the Galaxy and Roll for the Galaxy, but with a different theme?
So the question is, what do you?
Have you ever thought about designing something like that?
The question is, have you thought about designing a game in the Race for the Galaxy, Roll for the Strategy mechanics, but with a different theme?
Well, a straight reskin would have almost no appeal to me. I mean, if a publisher wanted one and we thought there was the interest in the market, then sure, we would look at it. But what we're actually doing is we're doing a number of spin-off products, a number of expansions, and so rather than do some reskin of Race for the Galaxy, we're exploring the universe in more ways. So we have coming up a game called Jump Drive, which is sort of, if you know my game The City by Amigo, this one is sort of takes simplified race cards, familiar card art, still playing with the cards, but the Jump Drive scoring, the city's scoring mechanism, and so it's an introductory game to the race line, and that's one thing that's coming out. Another thing that's coming out is a game that's called New Frontiers, which is another spin-off game which gets rid of the simultaneous and puts you more in the Puerto Rico style interaction of the role selection. And when Jay proposed this to me, Jay Tummelson of Rio Grande Games, I said, my first response was, well, only if you can get Andreas Seyfarth to go for it. So Andreas's name will appear besides mine on the cover. And he's on board with this project. So I think that's another way of looking at a lot of the race mechanics with sort of fresh eyes. And designing that's been, something that's been a real interesting challenge.
Now, speaking of Puerto Rico and Race for the Galaxy, can you tell everyone the story about how it came about with Puerto Rico, the card game, San Juan, Race for the Galaxy?
Well, essentially, Andreas was working on a Puerto Rico card game, but Stefan Bruck, the publisher of Alea, felt he had a limited time window to get one out. And so he started up a second parallel development effort where he asked myself and another designer to work on it. And so we were working in parallel because Stephen Burke felt I have to guarantee that I have a card game out within a year was sort of his self-imposed deadline. And I did a lot of work on it, and then Stefan told me that what the result I ended up with, if it were just him, he would publish it, but he needed to go back and talk with Andreas. Andreas looked at it and said, ooh, I like that central mechanism of paying for cards, which Richard Borg and I had come up with. and I want to use that, but I want to put it in my own game. So that's why Richard and I get royalties from San Juan. So Andreas went that way. Well, after San Juan was published, I sort of looked at it, I like it, but I felt that you could do something where you had more depth and you had a lot more variety, a lot more different cards. Because San Juan has like 3 copies of every card. There's about 30 cards in it. And I want to do something with like 90 different cards. And so I went to Stefan Brook and I asked permission. And we agreed to let me do it. And we pay a fraction of the royalties for race to Andreas. So, you know, we have this complicated, intertwined thing between us where, you know, we're getting royalties off of San Juan, he's getting royalties out of race, but that way everyone's happy. You don't ever want to go to court because then everyone loses.
Yes.
And so this is a way of solving that issue. And that's the essential thing that happened.
Yes, let's take another audience question.
Question is, what's it like working on your own expansions as opposed to working on expansions for other people's games?
So the question very quickly is, what's it like working on expansions for your own games versus working on expansions for other designers' games?
Well, there's almost a third part to that question, you know, which is what is it like for other people to come in and work on your games with their own ideas for the expansions?
Yes.
Because now I've had all 3, right? I like expansions often as a way to revisit a game or to see it with fresh eyes or to communicate. You know, sometimes you have a larger story that you're trying to get across, but you realize that if I pack it all in the base game, people's eyes will glaze over here. But if I separate them into 2 parts and they like the base game, then when the expansion comes, they're ready to learn again. Their eyes don't glaze over, they're excited, you know, ooh, new stuff. And they can swallow the whole thing. Whereas if you put it all in one package, it would never get played. It would just be too much, too heavy a learning burden. And sometimes people don't realize that because they go, well, why wasn't this put in with the base game? And they don't realize that they split up the learning into 2 parts and it felt very easy and natural to them. But, you know, in reality, you couldn't put them together. It would have been too big a lump. And so for me, I like doing my own expansions because I get to tell those larger stories. I like approaching other people's games. I've done expansions now with Pandemic. I've done an expansion for St. Petersburg, the first edition of St. Petersburg. And there it was fun to look at a game. I'd been one of the early playtesters on Pandemic before it was published. And to look at a game and sort of, ooh, now I get to play with all the crayons and do things. And Matt invited me in to help on the Pandemic expansions. And Matt and I have very different design styles. I learned a lot from Matt. Matt says he's learned a lot from me, so it turned out to be a pretty nice thing to do for several years when Matt was really busy. You know, he had small kids. He was working for a startup in the Silicon Valley. He just didn't have time to do projects. And there was a period in there where, for example, he needed a sequel to Roll Through the Ages, the Bronze Age. Mm-hmm. And both the publisher and Matt came to me and asked me to do Roll Through the Ages, the Iron Age, which came out last year.
Yes.
Last year and a half, I guess. And they both came to me. You know, that's not a project I sought out, but one that was, you know, please help me out because I don't have enough time. In some ways, Roll is the opposite experience for me because now Weiwa came into a project that he had worked on, assisting me with both the development and the graphics. And, you know, he'd done a lot of work on it, and now he had his own ideas and own vision for what a race dice game would be. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I'm seeing my own work being, you know, approached this way by someone. And that's sort of interesting because in the first roll, you know, it was Weiwa's first real published game. You know, he had done a few small things, but it was his first major published game. And he wanted to do everything. So I would only offer general critiques. And certainly some things changed and evolved because of these general critiques. But, you know, my hands were itching because I wanted to get in there. And with Ambition, Weiwa came up with the general ideas, and I ended up doing the implementation. So I got my hands dirty, and Weiwa was back offering critiques because, you know, I would propose something, he would say, oh, the costs are wrong for this reason, and, you know, so on. So, you know, we've sort of traded off roles between the first version, the base game of Roll for the Galaxy, and Ambition, the second one.
Speaking of which, while you're on that, people want to know what the status of Roll for the Galaxy is.
Oh yes, people want to know what the status of Roll for the Galaxy is in terms of more expansions,
Because the time that will have to be the last question.
et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, well, we have, in addition to 2 spin-off games in the race universe coming this year, we have 3 things planned for next year, one of which is a Roll expansion. So, we've been working on that. Another one is that the sales for Xeno Invasion, the latest Race for the Galaxy expansion, have been good enough that this week Jay Tummelson gave me the okay to go ahead and do Xeno Wars, which I had sketched out the design but not done anything until we knew whether the sales would be high enough. So that's a second thing that'll be coming out next year. And then there's a third project that we're not ready to announce yet, but I'm hoping that people will be excited by.
Well, great. Well, thanks for
As always, it's a
coming
pleasure to be here and to talk.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this year, and thanks for all the questions out there.
Yes, let's bring Tom in for the close.
Alrighty, so.
You want me out of here?
Yes, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you,
Jason, if you
Tom.
can go up there and tighten in, I'm just going to do a solo ending here.
Okay. I will see everyone back at our headquarters.
Probably turn that mic off briefly. I'm just going to do a quick ending. That's it. All right, folks. We appreciate you watching us live. We know that there's been a lot of issues with our sound equipment. We were running on a bit of a skeleton crew here. Didn't have the full thing, and also we don't have all our mics yet. We are running on 2 mics. We have 3, and I'm gonna probably buy a 4th one, although mics are pretty expensive. But we have a soundboard, and we'll be putting all that stuff together. Derek is our new sound guy, and he started this week, but he's not here. He's back home. So we'll be having all that for Origins. At Origins, we will be trying to stream live, although we're not sure if we can do that yet because conventions charge a lot of money for streaming, so we hope to do some of that there. Anyhow, we have a lot of new games that we'll be talking about over the next coming weeks. I'll be doing another Q&A at 4 o'clock Eastern Time on Monday, so we'll be back then. I'll be flying home tomorrow, and Board Game Breakfast is mostly already ready to go because of a lot of it we recorded here. So anyhow, guys, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell, and this has been Live with the Dice Tower at the Gathering of Friends 2016. We'll see you then. And we're going to cut it off here. Hang on. Sorry. Ba-da-bum, bum, 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 ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, 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 bum, bum, ba-da.